Hey guys, John V from PhoneArena here. Right now you're watching our video comparison between the Nokia Lumia Icon and the Samsung Galaxy S4. So we have the Nokia Lumia Icon, which is Verizon Wireless's latest Windows phone. We're going to pit it against the Samsung Galaxy S4, which is Samsung's flagship Android smartphone last year. We know it's an age thing, but nevertheless, it's still a top-end Android smartphone that's going to compete well in this space. And in this case, it's going against the Lumia Icon. There's just something about the boxier, rectangular looking design of the Lumia Icon that really catches their attention more so than the conventional looking Galaxy S4. On paper, the Galaxy S4 is the more compact, thinner, and lighter handset between the two, but with its plastic casing, doesn't give it as much sturdiness compared to the polycarbonate casing of the Lumia Icon. It really helps too that it has a metal bezel, which really gives it some added strength. Even though we prefer the sturdier build quality of Lumia Icon, the Galaxy S4 feels better to hold in the hand. That's thanks in part to its rounded corners. It just feels better and more ergonomic in comparison to the boxier styling of the Lumia Icon. And its metal trim bezel, though nice and gives it a premium aspect, it does feel rather sharp to the touch. So when we hold in the hand, it digs in and makes it feel a little bit more uncomfortable. Interestingly enough, they feature similarly spec'd displays, so there are a lot of things about them that we like. In the Lumia Icon, there's a 5-inch 1080p clear black AMOLED display, while the Samsung Galaxy S4 packs along a 5-inch 1080p Super AMOLED display. Considering that they both have the same size displays and resolutions, they produce the same amount of details, so both are visually stunning in this category. At the same time, seeing that they employ AMOLED technology, they have very similar qualities. For example, you have the rich saturated color reproduction, which gives them a very iridescent glow, and you have also wide viewing angles. However, when it comes to outdoor visibility, neither is really great just because their brightness level barely gets close to the 300 nits mark. So we find both displays very attractive. There's a lot to like, but with Galaxy S4, it features the unique functionality of being able to actually track our finger as we're hovering over certain elements. And when it works in play with its various air view features, it really kind of gives us the indication that there's a little bit more tech involved with the display. We like the placement of buttons on both handsets just because they're in familiar location, but we just like the Lumia Icon set a little bit more just because they're more raised and distinctive. They share many common things around their trims. For example, you have the various microphones, their 3.5mm headset jacks, and their micro USB ports for charging data connectivity. But with the Galaxy S4, you get a little bit more hardware. For example, with the micro USB port, you gain video out functionality with the aid of an adapter, and also features an IR blaster on the top edge, which basically makes the handset double as a universal remote. It's also worth pointing out that the Galaxy S4 has a very useful micro SD card slot to increase its internal storage capacity. The Verizon's version is available in either 16 or 32 gigabytes, whereas with the Lumia Icon, it's only available in 32 gigabytes. And finally, we can't forget about their cameras. They're pretty beefy on both. You have a 20 megapixel camera in the Lumia Icon versus a 13 megapixel one in the Galaxy S4. This isn't a new comparison just because we've compared the Windows Phone experience versus the Android one countless times before. So with the Lumia Icon, it features the Windows Phone 8 experience with the GDR3 update, while the Samsung Galaxy S4 has the TouchWiz Nature UX experience running on top of Android. Windows Phone does a fantastic job with the visual presentation, and there's just a higher level of that compared to the experience over on the Samsung Galaxy S4. You have a very dynamic looking start screen with all those neat live tiles, and you see it translate over to the various applications thanks to the modern UI that's in play with the platform. Well, the Galaxy S4's TouchWiz Nature UX experience has more personalization elements to it, and on top of that, you see the maturity of the platform itself. We see it in a variety of different things, such as multitasking to start off. You have with the Windows Phone experience, it's pretty much task switching more than anything else. It's kind of similar to with the Galaxy S4 with the standard way of doing multitasking, but with its multi-Windows feature, you could layer two applications on top of one another, so you have that real multitasking experience. And there's the notification system as well. We greatly prefer that of the Android experience just because it's in a unified spot and really simple and easy to access any time. You just swipe down from the top bezel and it's very organized, while with the Windows Phone experience of the Lumia Icon, you gotta look around throughout the start screen to view where they're at, and sometimes it's not right in your face. You gotta really look down into it. Being the newer device between two, there's a benefit with the Lumia Icon, the fact that it features a faster processor, a quad-core 2.2 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 CPU with the Adreno 330 GPU and 2 GB of RAM, and quite honestly, the performance is top-notch. Everything about it is super swift and snappy. Whereas with the Galaxy S4, it relies on an older processor, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 600 CPU to be exact. And with that, it does a decent job. It's pretty fast, but you don't have that sense of snappiness associated with the Lumia Icon's performance. And now, every now and then, just navigating across the home screen, we do come across some instances of slowdown or lag. There's a lot of things to like about the web browsing experience here on both handsets. You have really large displays with high resolution, so it's super detailed. You have fast 4G LTE speeds, very smooth navigational controls, but with the Galaxy S4, you have some additional features we otherwise wouldn't get with the Lumia Icon. For example, you have the air gestures where you can actually swipe up, wave your hand over the display to scroll up and down. You can even use the eye tracking feature to move vertically in the web browser, and you also have the various air view functionality as well. There's a higher level of visual presentation associated with the music player in the Lumia Icon, whether it's the stock Windows one or the Nokia mixed radio applications. It really shines for its presentation value. As far as the audio quality, it's a pretty close call. Both are very powerful and loud, but the Lumia Icon's internal speaker seems to emit the slightly stronger tones. There's no denying that the handsets are wonderful. When it comes to watching high-definition videos, we're really mesmerized and attracted to displays, the AMOLED displays in them. It really shines for those saturated colors and really helps in capturing our attention. At the same time, the playback is extremely smooth, but you have some additional functionality that some people will enjoy with Galaxy S4. For example, you have the air view functionality. You can hover your finger over the timeline, you can get a preview. And on top of that, you have a slightly better multitasking experience too, because you could output the video, layer it on top of something else, and you could watch the video as you're doing something else. Interestingly enough, they share pretty much the same level of manual controls, though the presentation layout is a little bit different with both. We prefer the styling with the Lumia Icon, of course, just because you have this circular type of interface where it's more menu driven with the Galaxy S4. But the Galaxy S4 has a lot of very cool looking shooting modes to choose from right from within the camera application. We don't have to go to something else. Whereas with the Lumia Icon, we got to use the various lenses or go to the smart shooting mode, which isn't quite as comprehensive compared to what Samsung has to offer. Don't let the Galaxy S4's 13 megapixel camera fool you, just because it produces very similar results to the higher 20 megapixel camera of the Lumia Icon, especially outdoor conditions where there's plenty of sun. They produce pretty much the same visuals, and quite honestly, you'd be hard pressed to actually realize the difference between the two, just because you get some amazing looking details, some nice natural colors, and properly exposed shots. But the biggest differentiator here is just with the 19 megapixel higher resolution samples of the Lumia Icon. That's where we see the detail superiority of its camera versus its rival. Under lower lighting conditions, we see a greater difference in quality between the two cameras. We really see the Lumia Icon's camera excelling in this area just because its shots are noticeably brighter in tone, so it draws out more details, though it comes at the expense of sometimes being prone to blurring due to the longer exposure. It's a close race with their 1080p high-definition video recording quality. They produce similar results, a lot of strong details in the videos, nice exposure, natural colors, and clear audio recording. The only advantage we'd say here is going to be with the Lumia Icon and its optical image stabilization. You don't see much of a jerkiness as we're moving up and down or panning. And on top of that, it has a 3 times lossless zoom, which really comes in play when you want to get closer to something you're shooting. Call quality performance easily goes to the Lumia Icon. That's because voices on both ends of the line are very clear and distinctive with minimal background noise, and helps too that the earpiece and speakerphone are very strong with their volume outputs. With Galaxy S4, there's a hint of distortion with voices. Considering they have similar sized batteries, battery life is pretty much even with the two, though with our battery benchmark tests, it's actually the Galaxy S4 achieving the slightly stronger results. So you have a 2600 milliamp hour battery in the Galaxy S4 versus a 2420 milliamp hour one in the Lumia Icon. So with that battery benchmark test that we ran, the Galaxy S4 put out 4 hours and 59 minutes from a full charge versus the 4 hours and 50 minutes tally of the Lumia Icon. Luckily, both are still ample to give us at least a solid 1 day of normal usage. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting, just because if you go to Verizon Wireless's website, you'll notice that the Galaxy S4 is selling for $150 with a 2-year contract. So you do save money, $50 less than the Nokia Lumia Icon, which is at $200. Taking all that into consideration, it's a lot tougher to stick with the Galaxy S4. Despite being a top-notch device in this day and age still, you just get a little bit more value knowing that the Lumia Icon is a newer device with newer hardware. At the same time, there's a matter with their platform experience, and as we've seen, Android on the Galaxy S4 just continues to have a more diversified portfolio. It's just more functional, deeper, and you have a lot more options available to you, whereas with Windows Phone, it's still not quite on the same level, but it's slowly getting there. So if you guys want to learn more about either device, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. It's John V. Thanks for watching.